right. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are. And welcome to this Okta Workflows community online meetup. Today we have a special meetup. We have 4 fabulous speakers. And so we hosted an in-person event back in June in San Francisco with the same folks. And we wanted to repeat the same thing online. So folks who are not in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, could join and and listen to these wonderful talks. So the plan today, again, we're gonna first have Emily talk about Okta Workflows roadmap and Okta Ideas. Then we're gonna have Erik from Thumbtack talk about making access requests better with Jira and Okta Workflows. Then Mick is gonna talk about Okta Workflows templates, and Ajay is gonna talk about OpenAI and workflows. This event is being recorded, and then you can watch a replay right after we end the session on Crowdcast, and then tomorrow also on YouTube. I will also send you a message with a link to YouTube and also Crowdcast sometime tomorrow, and any other resources that we mentioned in this meetup. I think I forgot to introduce myself. I am Max, and I host Workflows online meetups and sort of manage and run the Okta Workflows community. So that's all. And then I guess Emily, the stage is yours.
Okay. Okay. Hoping everybody can see my screen.
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay, great. So, hello, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Emily Wendell. I am one of the product managers here at Okta for the Workflows platform. Today, I'm going to go through our upcoming roadmap and talk a little bit more about Okta Ideas and how you can help influence our roadmap. So first up, our safe harbor slide. So if you've seen Okta presentations before, you're probably familiar with this one. It just means that any sort of dates that we say or features may change before they get rolled out. And so this is a snapshot of what we're planning currently, and that may change in the future. All right, so with that out of the way, let's take a look at the roadmap. So I want to start off with some things that are available today. So first up is the Oracle HCM Cloud Connector. We've made a conscious effort to spend more on building out some of our HR integrations. And Oracle HCM is a very popular one that we're pleased to be able to give you the ability to search for employees, import them into Okta, and do all of the write back functionality. This connector will pair with the Anything as a Source connector, which is available in Okta today, and you can use it to do all of your importing and updating needs. More HR connectors are coming soon, such as Workday, which has been probably our most requested one for the longest amount of time. So we're thrilled that that one should be coming out in this upcoming quarter. We're also working on NetSuite, Tableau, and Zoho Mail. These will help round out our catalog and we'll be able to have more functionality and capabilities. So you'll be able to do the typical LCM functionalities of importing users and groups, but you'll also get some of the specialized information such as sending out certain emails and running different types of reports. So more details will be coming soon, but all of these should be coming out in Q3. Now on to some of our platform features. So we have RBAC, which is role-based access control. That is available in preview in EA currently today. So if you are interested, you can reach out to your CSM and get onto the beta. But yeah, so this is something we've talked about for a long time. You don't have to be a super admin anymore to access workflows. And there's a whole host of different roles and access. You can see here, there's 4 different types of roles. And this is just phase 1. We have already in place more roles that are coming, more access controls. So you'll be able to really decide who can see what folders, who can see what flows, who can do stuff with different connections. And this is all for making your lives easier so that everyone who uses workflows doesn't have to be a super admin. Right. Next up is log streaming, execution log streaming. And so this is something, again, has been highly requested, and we want to make sure is finally coming out for all of you so that you're able to see what's actually going on with your workflows. We have heard loud and clear that our reporting is limited today, and we want to make sure that you're able to see exactly what's going on and get alerts and more information about your flows. You'll be able to pipe this information into Splunk or into Datadog, any of your tools of choice, and run more alerting, monitoring, and all that kind of good stuff. So that is also, I believe, still in EA. So if you're interested, again, reach out to your CSM. All right. So along the same lines, we have Execution History Inspector that is coming as well. So this allows you to actually take a deep dive into each of the cards within your workflow and see what's going on as far as how many steps is this? How long does it take to call specific cards? This will help you write more efficient flows. So that way you're not, you know, you're not bogged down by something you don't know. And in the event of like when there's different throttling, latency, like you'll be able to go in and just really see what's going on. For a long time, workflows has been for lack of a better phrase, a black box. And we want to start to peel the layers off so that way you can see what's going on and make the right decisions about your flows. All right, so last big feature, and this one's available today, is we now have multi-cluster deployments. This was started, well, really escalated by a lot of the issues that we had earlier in the year. We were originally going to work on it in June, but that timeline got moved up and we're able to get it out the door. I won't make any comments on how our performance has been lately, just to avoid anything happening. But we do have now the ability to really scale each portion of our cells independently and fluctuate that, like as the system fluctuates, make sure that we're taking the right actions to make sure that your flows and anything that you're doing is not impacted. We know that you rely on us for a lot of your business, and we really appreciate it. And we want to make sure that you're not impacted by anything going on behind the scenes. And so with that, that's all of our roadmap items. So you may have heard me say and may have seen that most of our features have been Okta Ideas. They started out that way. So let's take a look and learn a little bit more about Okta Ideas. So if you're not familiar with it, it's our community portal for customer feature requests. So you fill out the form on the right and you vote on existing ideas. Now, this is only for feature requests. It's always somewhat frustrating when I see a bug that comes through and makes it to me, and I have to close it as a bug and say, please submit through support. So just keep an eye out for that. If you have any questions, please contact support or your CSM, and they can help you out with whether it is a feature request or a bug. Now, contrary to popular belief, Okta Ideas is not a black box where ideas go to die. They are actively reviewed, but there is a certain amount of, there is a threshold that has to happen before it even makes it to product. So there's a certain amount of votes that we need tied to a certain amount of account revenue. And all of that has to be met first, and then we're able to prioritize. Something that I want all of you to understand, like your ideas, even if they get sort of backlogged or not done at the timely fashion, we are looking at all of them and we do want to build things. Our problem is more that there are so many great ideas and not enough engineers. And so we have to prioritize, and that's why sometimes things take a bit longer than you'd like. But you all have great ideas, and please keep them coming, keep voting on them. So let's take a quick peek at the process, because I thought this might be a little bit helpful to see some of the background for what happens. So when an idea is submitted, it gets voted on. So tell your friends you submit something. I've seen Max say a lot of times in different Slack channels, like, please upvote different ideas or different suggestions. And that really gets us to that threshold when we start to review the ideas once a quarter. And at that point, it kind of goes through a couple of lists, making sure that an existing idea isn't already there or in progress, closing any kind of duplicates, moving over votes, all that kind of great stuff. And then goes to our product operations team, and they assign it off to us. And then we review and update your idea. And so, sometimes the idea is really great, but we can't prioritize it above something we already have in progress. And so, sometimes things seem to stay in product review for a long time before they hit the roadmap. It doesn't mean that we're not looking at every single thing that comes through. All right, so I have a bonus section that all of you are getting. I hope Max won't be annoyed about this, but I do want to talk about our new community forum that we have for workflows. So some of you may have seen the announcement or the blog post. Okta Workflows is now part of the Okta Developer Forum. For years, you guys have asked for a place where you can share your flows, share your templates, talk to each other, collaborate, find new ideas. We now have this available, and we're getting a lot of our internal SEs and teammates to post their workflows. And so please check it out. Please let us know what you think, and upload your own templates and ideas. We want to make the community thrive, and that's helpful and only possible with all of you participating. So with that, I'm all done, and we'll pass it off to
You,
Erik.
Erik. Thank you. Thank you, Emily. Yeah, and I shared the link, the forum link, in the chat. All right, let me.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. So I'm just going to share my screen, Max, real quick.
Yeah. Let me move, and I'll move it on stage, on the main stage.
Okay. Minimize. I have to share.
All right.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
Gosh. Bookmarks. All right. So first off, Emily, thank you for that presentation, and thank you, Max, for having me join everyone today. I want to start by saying this is a slightly modified version of the presentation I gave in person here in San Francisco. But I think, I'm much more comfortable speaking towards the little green light on the top of my computer and a presentation than I am in person. So thank you for listening and joining me as we talk about Thumbtack and our journey with access requests. So I'm Erik Wooding. I'm a manager of IT systems here at Thumbtack. I am also, for lack of a better term, the workflows guy. I imagine most of you are the workflows guy or the workflows gal. And that's just kind of how things go sometimes with workflows. Thank you for non super admin access to workflows, by the way. So I want to say, this is really is truly a journey for us. Workflows for me was something that was kind of passed off from a former engineer who had started doing things back in 2020, 2019, 2021-ish. And we really were using it in a limited way. We didn't quite know how to use it. But have you ever played the game Factorio? It's a game I enjoy. And there's a saying in the game, the factory must grow. And I really feel like that is a great way to think about workflows. If you're not familiar, the game Factorio, you start as a person on a planet with a little hammer, and you mine your ore, you start creating plates and, processing the materials, and you eventually are shooting a rocket into space. We're not shooting rockets into space with workflows. However, I think it's a really great example of how you take something very simple, which is just, you're building something, and then you start interconnecting them. You create connections that you didn't think you needed. And also, you're constantly rebuilding. And so this is one of the things that I've learned most from working on this particular project with access requests through Jira. We are constantly building, constantly iterating. It doesn't seem like I've stopped working on it for a while. That being said, it works really well for us, and we keep finding these things to make it better. So the factory must grow. So I do want to kind of cover a couple bits here. And I do want to caveat in the next slide. So why are we going to redo what already exists? There is the RCAR new feature in Okta. I'll talk about that a little bit in the next slide. That really takes a lot of this out. However, we are an Atlassian shop. We're really deep into their ecosystem for documentation, for ticketing, for approvals. We utilize Jira Assets for our enterprise devices. We've replaced or are replacing our asset management tool. Physical assets like computers and hardware, things like that, are going into assets. So we're really all in on Atlassian. So we funnel all internal requests through JSM. And that's important for us because we know what's going on there. We've built a bunch of different automations for a bunch of different purposes. We know how that the API works. We know how to make it work for us. And the other bit is, I think Access Requests has a really, really solid Slack integration. If you are a Slack first company, just use that. I swear to you, that is a really, really slick process. If you don't want to go the RCAR route, the Slack integration is really nice. So on the kind of, why are we doing this? On the other side is like access requests can also only create a ticket, not make any updates. So we'd have to handle automations either way. And we also just aren't really thrilled with how we can dynamically manage a lot of the information in the access request itself. So we're dynamically changing our inputs based on our existing JSM assets and the information that's within there. So for example, I'll show it in a little bit. We have a list of DRIs, and they're essentially the approvers of the application. If that person is listed as a DRI, they are automatically brought into the Jira ticket as the approver. And that means we don't have to create a bunch of different request types in Jira, and we don't have to modify the access request every time someone comes or goes. So we'll go over that a little bit. Next, like I said, don't fall into my traps. I have used RCAR a bit, and so RCAR is a new feature that is available likely through your Okta admin features page. Resource-centric access requests. So this allows you to kind of create, they are hidden access or request types in access requests, but you're working entirely in the Okta dashboard. And what happened, or the Okta admin dashboard, and then what happens is you're able to go through and assign your groups and roles and all the attributes that are a part of an application. You're able to kind of pull those out and create, I think it's entitlements. That's probably the wrong word. So apologies to whoever makes the words here. But we'll take those and you'll create them dynamically in the Okta application itself. The approvals occur within Okta. The access request button is right in the Okta dashboard. They're great. But as I said, we live in Jira and Atlassian, so we're not doing that. So here's how we have kind of done it. Actually, I guess I'm wrong order here. What we're working towards and what we're trying to do is we're trying to build a fully dynamic, relatively touch-free access request system. We're still iterating and are able to dynamically generate new request types when applications are created. And we're working through adding in all the sequences for assignment now. So if you say, we can create the application request type in access requests now. So let's say we add in Looker, which is one of our tools. We know what roles we have available based on the group name. So all of our groups are appended with the application if it relates to a application role. So Looker admin, Looker viewer, Looker developer, right? We want to be able to take all of those groups and create those as the assignment, so you can assign the user to those groups dynamically and create that in the request type itself. Right now, that's still a manual process, but it's not the worst process because we've taken the vast majority of the effort away just by automating the request type creation. So just a quick bit here. So this is Jira Assets. I just want to give a little context. So here you can see Kyle is our TT vendor DRI. For anecdotes, you can see we have like our access requests are listed over here. You can see the groups that are linked, and I'll show those in a second. We have our vendor name in here. This whole asset scheme for us is it is our source of truth for our applications. We know what our tools are based on what's in assets. We provide that to our end users through a chart in Confluence that is dynamically updated, and will provide like the category and the description. So when you need an application, you can go into a Confluence page. You don't need to see the Jira assets themselves and just sort by category. Oh, do I need a compliance software? Oh, looks like we have a few different compliance softwares available. We don't need to get a new one. We can just use this one. And so this allows us to further automate, when we have our status as active, nothing happens obviously, but we can move it to deprecated. That can create our tickets, and it can tear down the application in Okta. It can tear down the access request types in access requests. So there's a lot that we do and are working towards, where we work within the assets database, and whoever's responsible for managing the apps or the stakeholders who are kind of keeping this information up to date. So we don't need to kind of wait or know. And as I mentioned, if a DRI/approver leaves, we get a ticket. We know, and we're able to immediately update that because we have a workflow that says, hey, this DRI is empty. Find out who is the new one, because then otherwise requests will stall because we just don't know that there's no approvers. Here's also where you can see we do have this access request true. So I'll show that in a little bit on the Jira form that we have. We dynamically allow certain applications to be in the access request. If it shows up there as true, it's listed. In the application role in Okta, this is the item I was talking about where we have the groups in Okta that assign specific roles. So here you can see it's just IT manager, admin, auditor, right? So these are the roles that are available, and ultimately what group you would get assigned to. Here is a little insight on how we manage a lot of the data that's used to build the request itself. So access requests use a pretty unique string of characters to identify the questions that you would normally be filling out manually. So when you go to the access request page and say, give me, anecdotes or whatever this one is, you're going to be prompted with a bunch of questions. Give me your Jira ticket, give me your due dates, your duration, temporary, permanent, the role you need. Since we're providing that all through Jira requests, we need to build the request itself. And so this allows us to dynamically select the form that is going to be used and pass these values over as the keys. And then the values themselves will be parsed out of the Jira ticket. Let's see. Okay. So what does it look like when we start a ticket? So the user will submit a ticket. Jira automations will occur. This is like, our general kind of operational needs, right? We're going to assign the approvers. We're going to assign some labels. We're going to make sure it has all the correct application components. A lot of the stuff that helps drive the, our metrics and identifying, high ticket items, that all happens there. And then the ticket goes waiting for approval. Our approvers will be notified via Slack, Jira, email. We send it everywhere. And as soon as they hit approve, the Jira ticket is sent in to Workflows, and the JSON is received by Workflows. So we send the entire ticket JSON data over to Workflows, where we'll parse through all the data from the ticket and grab those key attributes that are the questions, right? So we're going to grab the Jira ID. We're going to grab the approver. We're going to grab the application that they want, and we're going to grab the role and the duration. So those are the 5 key ones. We add others depending on the application itself, but that's the goal, is we're able to bring those over and say, here's the core or necessary attributes to build out the ticket. We'll pass that over to access requests to create the assignment, and then access request does its thing. It'll grab all that information. It'll parse through the your if statements. You're only going to display anecdotes admin if the role equals anecdotes admin, and if they're temporary or permanent, you'll assign it or leave it for open for an assignment at a later date. And then the most important part for us, at least, is after these actions happen in Workflows and access requests, we actually go back and notify the user. Obviously it's important to notify them. We close the ticket, and we're able to really do the vast majority of this fairly touch-free. So at this point, the approvers get assigned. The only people really touching the ticket are the approvers. Everything else kind of happens seamlessly, quickly. And so we're able to take what used to be a bothersome, hey, Bob, please approve this person's access, and they have to go in the ticket and write approved or whatever. They just get a notification in their favorite system of choice, and they can just hit approve. And that has really, really sped up our processing. So this is, again, a little too Jira focused. Apologies. This is what our form looks like. Access duration, application catalog, and role. These are all dynamic fields. So this is using those assets in the background to bring the information forward. There's a query language in Jira that allows you to kind of make decisions and show specific things based on the previous selection and all that stuff. So we are doing that here, which gives us the ability to limit the number of requests we're building in Jira, as well as making it more dynamic, like I said, where we just flip a true value in an asset and it pops up and is ready to go. One of the fun things I did here, we obviously, I think some folks in the Mac admins channel have noted like there's a lot in Jira Assets that is not built out. So we're stuck doing a lot of custom API connections. This was one of the fun parts for me, building out and figuring out how to work the API for assets, and going to Connector Builder and building into that system the ability to grab this information. One of the last things I was working on in this particular card itself is the output. So I want to be able to grab the, instead of going here and getting the values of the labels for the application and the role, I obviously want to grab that a bit more dynamically, right? So this is what I meant by like the factory must grow. We must improve. We must be more efficient. I can do a custom API call or just a raw request to Jira Assets, have my full URL there. But that's just not as fun, right? I get the status code and the headers, the body just the same, but we're constantly pushing to include more information in there and make it easier, simpler, and more efficient. So this is just kind of showing how we are getting the object values out of, the labels out of the assets. And that allows us to kind of take that label and assign it into the request itself. So here we've got the application and the role, and then we come into the next one and you'll see we actually put in the role, and this one doesn't include the application. But this is what I was talking about, and this is an older screenshot where you see we've actually manually defined the keys that are used for the various questions. So these are all dynamic now, and these are being pulled just as I would do for the get of the object in assets. I'm going to be able to pull these attributes out as well. And so instead of having multiple get object information and IDs and all that, we'll be able to just do it once, grab all the information, and then just drop our IDs in. So this is the structure of what the request looks like when you're answering questions. And then here you can see we created our list. This is all of the questions that are part of this particular request type. We assign the approver condition if approved. It's kind of interesting. We don't require approval on the access requests themselves the request types, because we gather approval in Jira, right? So if the approver decision is approved, we're able to go through and we provide that into the ticket, and we're good to go. There isn't a need to necessarily create more bits of information that are unnecessary, or running through the flow if it's not actually approved. So if it gets declined by the user, or the employee who's responsible for approvals, it'll just kind of hit the spot and say, oh, nope, we're not going to do anything. They could probably be a little bit earlier in the card, but that's how it goes. And this is what we actually submit to the governance request API. So here we've got our subject, we got our access request type ID, which was the, if we come back here, this is that value, the form ID here, and the application request is consistent through all. These are our requester field values. So these are all of the questions in list form. The requester user IDs. So this is whoever's submitting the ticket. The approval status. So we can mark it as approved. So it's passed through. And then the ID for the approver. And then it's just, at this point, we do have just that custom API action going to requests with the body. Once it's in access request, you can see here's all of the questions that we do have. And this is kind of a sample of the actions, right? If the application is Loom and the role is Loom creator and the duration is temporary, we're going to assign them to that group, the Loom creator group. We're going to wait 30 days. And once it's 30 days are done, we're going to revoke. And so this is very similar, to what you would want to do in, say, workflows, because all of this can be done outside of workflows. But we were working in a state previously where workflows wasn't accessible to everyone. All of our IT team has access to access requests and to manage the system here. So, we don't define in the request itself how long we want a temporary request to be. So each application gets its own specific kind of number. So for Loom, it's 30 days. For Ironclad, it's 90 days. For Workato, it's 180. It depends on the application owner's, license requirements or limits and how we can kind of empower the users the longest without kind of impacting licensing requirements. So this we build out just as we would, and this is the part I mentioned we're just starting to kind of automate now, where we create these temporary and permanent actions that happen and assign the user to the particular group that they need to go into on approval. So coming soon, we're building lots of new tools into the system. Really, the only limitation is what can be built dynamically into assets and documenting an asset tracker. I say no more workflows work, great, since only super admins can do it. But we are doing, again, I said, a bit of a refresh on the back end there in workflows. So it is working well. We want to make it work better. We want to make it work more efficiently and more dynamically. So we are growing and building out those other pieces where we're dynamically creating the request types and the actions that happen after. And then the next step is really like real-time provisioning for accessing Thumbtack administrative accounts. So this is like a little separate, but also still going to be built within assets, right? We want to say, hey, if you want to be an Okta super admin or a Google super admin, you're only going to get it for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever you need. It has to get approved by the DRI. And we don't want to have to manage like giving that person access every single time just because they need to make a maybe small change or they've gone through the process, right? We want to be able to provide real-time access and provisioning for Thumbtack administrative accounts. And all of that is going to be in Jira. So quick shout out, Jason Kuo, my manager, Angela Streeter, Tydo, Joshua Sinches, and Tuan at Thumbtack here. They've really enabled me to run through all of these processes very many times. We keep going and we keep finding new places to improve and do better. So huge shout out to them. And they're not noted here, but shout out to the Mac Admins Slack channel. You guys are awesome, and I know there's a few of you in here today and probably watching after the fact. So thank you all for your feedback and asking the questions before. so I don't have to and just searching for the answers. So that's it. So thank you all for listening, and feel free to reach out. My email is eric@thumbtack.com, and on Mac admins, Erik Wooding. So thank you all.
Awesome. Thank you, Erik. Yeah, and thank you for mentioning Mac admins. Actually, I put a link in the chat. So if you're listening live or the recording, if you're not a member of the Slack, I highly recommend you join. There is a very active Okta Workflows community. So yeah, just my advice is to definitely join. And thank you, Erik. All right, Mick.
All righty. Can you guys see my Workflows homepage?
No, not yet. Now we can.
There we go. Cool. Hi, my name is Mick Johnson. I'm part of the product acceleration team here at Okta. And one of the things that we try to do from our initiatives is, to grow adoption with some of our products. And one of the products that I'm involved in is Workflows. And so before I hop into templates, I just want to do a quick overview of the homepage for those of you that may have not explored it as in depth as maybe you could. Here at the top, you'll see we've got some videos, some how-tos for some of those folks that are just getting started. And then we've got a few more advanced videos here that go over different use cases that kind of apply to some business processes that people want to automate. And then, here at the bottom, we've got some, just some of our templates. So some of the that we've seen are pretty useful for the folks that are just starting out with workflows. Some of the more popular ones, so like maybe you're really starting to leverage it a little bit more, and then some that are related to lifecycle management, so onboarding, offboarding, things like that. And then here, I think, are some super valuable resources. Workflows documentation, I won't bore you with that. That's basically our docs that tell you what each function does, what its purpose, the connectors that we have, the actions, things like that. I think some of the meat and potatoes here are really like the how-to guides. And so Max has written a number of blogs around, how you can leverage workflows to perform particular tasks. And we also have a whole playlist, YouTube playlist of videos that, again, I think go over a number of different use cases, or it goes over what connectors are, what log streaming can do, how connector builders work, things like that. And then even cooler, we've got like our builder community, office hours, which if you haven't been there before, office hours are a group setting where different flowgrammers and customers get together, talk about what they're using workflows for. Maybe they have questions about a particular use case, or they just want to share something cool with what they're working on, like Erik did today. And so that's just kind of like a quick overview there. What I wanted to talk to you about today is templates. So templates are pre-built flows, sometimes for particular functions. Sometimes it's even more modular than that, which I'll show you here in a second. And templates, adding them to your Okta org is as simple as clicking Add Template, and then that's going to bring you right over, to your workflows folders, and it imports the flows and the tables that are a part of that particular template. And once we go, there we go. And so that'll be added here. In just a second, you'll see, we've got the two different flows here, the table. But if we just go back to, let's see, I think it's like 3 back. There we go. We go back to the template. We've got the description here, kind of giving a high level overview of what the purpose of this template is. We've got screenshots of the flows that are involved in the particular template. And if you're a visual learner like me, it helps take a look at it, since this is a visual low code, no code platform product. It's a great way to like visually see and connect the dots of how each card is playing into this. And we do our best to add notes to these templates. So like as you're building or as you're like maybe testing these flows out, it gives you a little bit more context into kind of what's happening, why we're using this card, things like that. And then this is kind of a general overview on this page, but if we go into the setup documentation, this is where we get a little bit more detailed into what it's going to take in order to actually run this flow. If there's some additional setup, so for instance, this one's really only within your Okta admin console. You have to set up the Okta connector, but if we're trying to leverage additional like third-party applications like Google Workspace, Office 365, things like that, if there's some additional setup there, that's kind of where this would be. And then in the testing portion, you want to validate that this template is doing what you think it should be doing. And so we try to be as detailed here with how to run those tests and validate that you're getting the right outcome. And so if we hop back over here, so we went over kind of the ins and outs of what a particular template is, but really I think one of the cool things about templates is how modular you can make it and how you can make it your own. Because for a lot of these, there's use cases or platforms I think that are very interchangeable, and so we like to consider these as kind of like a blueprint where it gives you an idea of what you can accomplish with it. But for instance, maybe you don't use PagerDuty, right? And a lot of this is used to generate a PagerDuty incident based off of a suspicious activity being reported by an end user. And in this instance, we're generating that PagerDuty incident and that ticket. But let's say I don't have PagerDuty. I want to be notified via Slack. And this I think gives a good gist of what you want to do. But event occurs, send a notification in a certain platform. What I'm going to do is instead of to try to generate that response. And so what we have, which is a more modular template here, is generating a Slack message with blocks. So if you're not familiar with blocks, it allows you to kind of customize your messaging so it's not just plain text. And so that's kind of what this template does. And so what I'll do is I'm just going to go ahead and add this template, and I'll show you how maybe getting an idea from one template can be applied to another, almost like combining the two. And so if we go into this flow, we've got an example of creating a Slack block message, which if you've been to their website and you've played around in like the blocks like playground or sandbox, I forget what it's called, this might look pretty familiar to you. And so instead of just using this example, I want to add an event to this. So I'm going to add the Okta suspicious activity reported event. So if we go here, suspicious activity reported, that will now be added as the workflow event here that we're going to leverage, that's going to kick this flow off. And so now, we've got all the outputs that come along with this suspicious activity reported. Instead of having like this message here, maybe I want to compose my own message. So this let's say this user has reported a suspicious activity on their account. Let's go ahead and do that. And then, we just drag that over. Well, let's see. Actually, and then if we wanted to add like, a link to it, you can use like fake link and then add, additional content if you wanted to. But, the idea is the same where, it didn't really take much, to modify this. We've got, our events here. All we added just a couple cards. And so that's kind of the idea I wanted to drive home is you're able to make this, it's as interchangeable and it's not a one size fits all solution for a lot of problems that we encounter in our IT lives. So, let's make it your own. And that's kind of what you can do here with templates. Yeah, I don't have too much more for you, but if you want to chat again, we have our Workflows office hours that are hosted every Thursday. Feel free to come by, share any ideas, ask any questions. It's everything and anything really workflows. And with that, I'll go ahead and hand it back to Max.
Thank you, Mick. Thank you. That was very good. I mean, templates are very, very useful. Ajay, the stage is yours. I think, all right, yeah, you were muted.
Oops.
Now we can hear you.
Okay. Hi, thank you very much, Max. And it's always hard following a great set of speakers from Emily to Erik to Mick. So I'm going to try my best here. Now, there's been a lot of interest in Okta and, using OpenAI. As my t-shirt says, go beyond with identity. Really, it should have said, go beyond with Okta Workflows and OpenAI, because that's the subject of my presentation today. I have done other Crowdcast sessions with Max before, and I will reference them as I go along. But I wanted to give you a perspective with 2 practical use cases and 1 to seed your imagination. So let's get started. The first example is where we use an LLM as a general purpose text in, text out interface. So think of it like an API that accomplishes a lot with really no work on your side except to invoke the API. And the use case here is time zone conversion. It's actually a very complicated problem to solve if you were to write code for it. City names change, cities decide to follow daylight savings time or not. And when you want to perform time zone aware identity operations, an LLM gives you an API that you can just invoke and ask the question and get the response back. So this is what I covered in an earlier Crowdcast session, and you can check out the Crowdcast or YouTube recording. Now, and this is the one where I wanted to seed your imagination and get those creative juices flowing, quite literally. So think about security, right? It always comes down to 3 things. Something you know, something that you have, or something that you are. And with AI, it's becoming harder and harder, and we have to raise our barrier as well so that bad actors don't access our data. So something we've all seen the challenges with passwords and security questions. We, as well as knowledge questions, a lot of our information is out there. Something that you have, we've all seen challenges with SMS phishing attacks. Something that you are, right? Think about all the capabilities that AI is having with voice. With 3 seconds of audio, you can replicate someone's voice. So here's a thought. What if we took that one factor, something that you know, and made it a piece of creative writing and used AI to generate an image? So, for example, let's imagine that I have written up some creative text, and when I authenticate, it shows me 3 images. Even if someone were looking over my shoulder, because the images are generated dynamically, they wouldn't know what the correlation of a given image is with my creative writing. So if you look at this, you may say, well, Ajay probably likes science fiction. Yeah, he does love, Turbo Kick on the weekends. Or he's got this other one where he's leaping. But which one actually correlates with the creative piece of writing that I entered in? I got this idea when I was working with an Okta customer, and I noticed how tuned they were into looking at art. Now, another reason that I wanted to highlight this is because really, when I think about the capabilities offered by LLMs, I think what we're going to see is that certain LLMs are good for certain tasks. So in this particular case, I used Deep AI to actually generate those images and OpenAI to generate random text. So that's how I got those 3 options. Now, another aspect that I would like to highlight here is that we actually have an Okta Workflows connector with Okta's Customer Identity Cloud, Auth0. And there are various design patterns that we can use Okta Customer Identity Cloud with Okta Workflows. Something to think about. The third use case is taking that generative AI aspect one step further. But I really want it to be on my data. So this is what we call the retrieval augmented generative AI pattern. And the example here is to be able to generate documentation on AD groups. And as you know, AD groups have been managed over time, decades, with very little governance. So AI provides an innovative way in order to be able to understand what those groups actually entail. I did a crowdcast session on this with Max earlier, and I will also be rolling out a blog for those who prefer to complement that recording by reading the steps in a text format. So these were the 3 use cases that I wanted to share of using OpenAI with Okta Workflows. Mick Johnson, who presented earlier, has authored a blog on different use cases with AI in general. And what we're doing here is we're looking for you to come up with your ideas as well. The OpenAI connector is available. Emily's team put that out there earlier this year. And we're really excited to see what use cases you come up with. With that, I will turn it over to Max.
Thank you, Ajay. And actually, I shared the link. To the video in the chat. So very cool. So there's one. I see another one now, but I know there's 2 questions. But the first one, Erik, I know you answered you added comments, but if you want to briefly just go over the answer to that question, and let me know if you want me to read it.
No, that's fine. I think I'll just read it real quick. So Erik, are y'all considering the new version of access requests at all? Curious what y'all's thoughts are around it and any potential limitations or issues you've run into. So I would just say, I think, please definitely correct me if I'm wrong. I think what we're referring to with the new version is RCAR. So I did touch on that a little bit, and I went into a little bit more detail on the slide, in my response there. We have previously used the self-service applications in Okta, which it's a very similar process. It's all through the dashboard. You can go in there, you can say, I want this app, and it gets assigned to you. And it was used for, simple no license restriction applications that we would use. We just found people still submitted tickets. And we continue to just kind of lean into that. That's how our folks know how to get support. That's how they know how to get things. So, we've been building this since last year in probably 5 different iterations now. And our card just came out in June. So, I like the idea, and I would definitely recommend, if you don't have similar, fears around adoption, or if you really think you can just kind of say, hey, this is how you request an application and make it work for your org, do it. I think it works so much better. And you still get to do, if you want, a lot of the API work to kind of create those sequences and entitlements and bundles and all of those fun things that come with it. But yeah, it just, we're deep into it, and that's just kind of how we're going forward. So,
well, thank you, Erik. And Ajay, there's a question for you. Do you want to read it?
No, I got it. I will just say that it isn't very expensive to be able to try it out and just get your hands dirty with the technology. I did these for hackathons initially, and I would say that it was very cost effective. I mean, this thing is probably covered by your trip to the coffee shop for a latte, right? Of course, if you're looking at expanding it out and analyzing a lot of information or generating a lot of information, those costs would be significant. But the cost factor should not hold you back from trying it out.
All right, thank you, Ajay. Cool. I don't see any more questions. I am showing one slide with all the workload resources, and I know that we mentioned I think most of these resources, but I wanted to have one sort of slide with all of them. And there is a link at the bottom of your screen that says Okta Workflows. It's a green button, Okta Workflows Community Resources. So that link will take you to a page where all these resources with links, so you can actually click and go to those resources. And I will also send a message tomorrow with a link to this page. But I just wanted to again show you again that we have so many resources available, community resources, content and templates. And we sometimes find out that people are not aware that these resources exist. So hopefully this shows you that there's a lot of content, a lot of help for you to learn how to use workflows. But I want to thank folks for joining us today, and I also want to thank Emily, Erik, Mick, and Ajay. Thank you for wonderful presentations. And again, I hope everyone enjoyed this, and we hope to have you back sometime soon. And thanks again, folks, for joining. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.